Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Injury Law Pod. I am your host, Eric Bartlett, 29-year personal injury lawyer, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things personal injury law related. However, little twist today, we are going to talk personal injury law, but we're going to focus in a little bit on our annual fundraising effort with Feed Northland Kids, an organization that we have now partnered with for the last few years. It's a great organization. It provides food for kids that are facing food insecurity at home. So, very worthwhile cause. They operate within a lot of the schools here in the Northland. And again, just truly invaluable to those children that are in need. And right now, it couldn't be more timely because we have had the government shutdown. And so there's been actually, I talked to the director, Gwen O'Brien, here recently. She told me that really this whole year, there's been an increased need. And then with the government shutdown and federal funding for food programs, it has gone into crisis mode. And so now more than ever is really important if you're in a position to give. And I want to tell you something exciting. I'll just tease it. I'll give you more details here in a little bit on our fundraising efforts this year, but we're going to be at the Chiefs game on November 23rd when they face the Colts. And I'll leave it there for now. At the end of the podcast, I'll talk about what we're doing that day and how you can be involved. So, again, we talk about personal injury a lot on this podcast, but recovery isn't just about medical bills, it's about rebuilding stability. And for that, many Missouri families, programs like SNAP are part of that recovery. And food insecurity, accident recovery, and community safety nets go hand in hand a lot of times. We see it here. And again, I'll get into the details on that, but just for now, understand that people that are in accidents, get hurt at work, whatever, they face food insecurity from time to time, just depending on the circumstances. And so that's how these food programs and injury law can overlap. And again, right now, especially in a year when government funding has been anything but stable. So, what is SNAP? It's a federal nutrition assistance program that helps low income households buy groceries. And according to the most recent stats of this year, 650,000 residents in Missouri receive benefits. And on average, it's about $190 per person per month. And what are common issues that these people run into? Benefit cuts or delays, eligibility confusion, especially after the pandemic, and rising food prices versus stagnant benefits. Benefits aren't going up, but food prices have, and that can create a real crunch in the budget for the folks relying on these programs. Now, again, as of yesterday, I guess it was, I'm recording this on Thursday, November 13th. As of yesterday, the government shutdown has ended. And so that's a positive step in the right direction. But again, I met with Gwen O'Brien with Feed Northland Kids earlier in the week, and she said the problem is the the growing cost of food over the last year or better has created a greater need. And then we had this shutdown and SNAP benefits were cut off. And we've just gotten to this level of crisis. And so, again, that federal shutdown occurred on October 1. It just got released. The bill was signed into law by the president. Things are back up and running, but as we all know, nothing with the government happens quickly. So it's going to be a while till everything gets back on track. The Missouri Department of Social Services, they issued partial November benefits starting November 11th using contingency funds that they had. That was after a court required SNAP payments to continue, again, in an effort to try not and have this gap for the people that are relying on these benefits to get food. But Missouri families face delays and uncertainty about benefit levels, again, even as food prices rise. Imagine trying to navigate all of that while recovering from an injury that keeps you out of work. Whether, again, you're seriously hurt in a car accident or whether you're hurt at work or something in between, you can experience a sudden reduction in your income. Again, we see it all the time in all those scenarios because people are knocked out of work. They may not have some type of benefit plan at work, and so they're not getting income. Or if they had a work injury, you do get weekly benefits if you're completely out of work or you have restrictions your employer cannot accommodate, but you only get 2/3 of your average weekly wage in benefits. So now you've all of a sudden gotten a third of what's normally coming in cut off, and it can create a real crunch in the budget. That's how this all comes together. And a lot of times people in that scenario, they apply to get food assistance. For example, a car accident victim with temporary disability and no income does qualify for SNAP. Again, it's not a snap of the fingers. It's a process. So you have to apply, you have to get approved, and again, there can be a delay there and create a hardship in trying to put food on the table. And then again, with the recent shutdown, that's created problems in and of itself. But injury lawyers, such as myself, we help clients recover compensation that cover medical care, living expenses, lost wages, those types of things. Unfortunately, none of this process moves quickly either, because if somebody's getting treated, obviously they've got to go through their medical treatment, they've got to get rehabilitated. There could be months, there could be years that go by before an injured person can get back to active employment. And again, law firms, again, here, right? If we know of a client that is in need, we're going to make them aware of possible options for them, including SNAP, Medicaid, food pantries, things like Feed Northland Kids during the pendency of their case. Because again, we know what they're going through. And obviously, we don't have any legal obligation to help them in that effort. But we feel like, again, with our close association with Feed Northland Kids, that we know about these programs. And we want to make sure if we have people that are suffering, we're doing everything we can to help them. And again, beyond pursuing the legal claim, going above and beyond to try to get them through a very tough time. And right now, again, with federal delays and the problems that we've seen, these connections that we can help with are more important than ever. Remember this: if you've been injured and you're waiting on a claim to resolve, make sure you ask your attorney about emergency food security options in your area, and make sure you get on the internet and see what's out there, because there are programs out there to help keep putting food on the table for your family. Some of the policy debates that occur from time to time are whether injury settlements should count as income, that's air quotes, for SNAP eligibility. But again, generally, we don't see much in the way of a problem there because, number one, any settlement is not guaranteed. There is no guarantee if you're coming out of a car accident or something that there's going to be a recovery because you're dealing with insurance companies and they may be fighting the claim, whatever that looks like. At the end of the day, we're going to work very hard to get a recovery, but there is a reason we have a job because insurance companies just don't typically roll over and offer up money. So again, they always look at, is there a settlement possibility that's going to be considered income? And again, something to keep in mind, a settlement is generally just that, a general settlement. So it's not itemized as to medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, things like that. It's just a lump sum. And so typically there's not a specific amount of a settlement that's identified as the lost income portion of it. So the argument is, again, there's no guarantee this money's coming, and there's no guarantee that any of it actually represents lost wages, even though that's always part of the claim we're going to be making. It's also debated about how the legal definition of disability affects access to food aid programs. Again, when you start getting into the language of these programs and what qualifies as a disability and things like that, there can be it can be a maze, and it's not necessarily a straightforward situation. And does it require some kind of a doctor's note, letter, something of that nature, indicating the person is disabled for all practical purposes? And then shutdown delays in federal verification systems can slow benefit approvals for newly disabled clients. Again, just like I previously talked about, none of this happens quickly. You have to go through the process, and delays are part of it. These aren't abstract policies, they're roadblocks for real people trying to recover physically and financially from some type of a serious injury that's occurred out of some type of an accident. So during the pandemic, there were emergency SNAP provisions in place, but after the pandemic, that those boosts expired, and now families receive lower monthly benefits as a result. And so that's been a big factor. Again, food prices have continued to rise coming out of the pandemic, but yet these benefits have stayed the same, and it doesn't match up because, again, rising food prices, same benefits, there's a gap. Now, the USDA court orders require continued payments via emergency reserves, but amounts and timing remain inconsistent. And the Missouri Department of Social Services accepts applications and mid certifications, but again, processing delays persist. So, again, it's a nightmare scenario for somebody in this situation. Again, you got a lot of stress, you're injured, things are happening, and you're looking for help, and it's slow to come along. Now, the other issues that surround all of this, there's the legislative debates on work requirements and income thresholds and things like that. Yeah, what does it look like to be disabled? What are the work requirements going to be for somebody to be eligible for these benefits? Income thresholds, right? If you're bringing in some amount of money, but not what you used to bring in, that can pose a problem for getting these benefits. In the rural areas, there's food access problems. Some towns lack grocery stores entirely. And then there's a transportation issue. And again, if you're suffering financially from some type of an injury that has knocked you out of work, all of this becomes very clear and very real to the person in that position. But nonprofits and lawyers are advocating for better distribution and emergency support for injury victims when they are facing these types of situations. And again, from a legal perspective, personal injury attorneys can advocate for policy that ensures injury settlements don't unintentionally disqualify clients from food aid. That's a big deal because, again, this settlement that encompasses medical bills, pain and suffering, potentially future medical, all that stuff, If that whole thing is considered income, that's a problem, because at the end of the day, it's not fair, because they're making up for a lot of other elements of the loss, not just the income portion of it. But if the whole thing is considered income, that can totally prevent them from getting any kind of food assistance. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing this year with Feed Northland Kids. So, again, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, we have now for several years partnered. Usually it's Giving Tuesday. This year, Giving Tuesday is December 2nd. And we work together with them because we see firsthand how food security and legal security go hand in hand. That's why we work with Feed Northland Kids, which is a North Kansas City nonprofit helping fight child hunger in Clay and Platte counties. And on Giving Tuesday, we're raising funds to help expand their school pantry programs and provide family meal kits for those who are in need. And again, whether that's from illness, injury, or just their general circumstances, the goal is not to have children going home hungry. We're there in an effort to put food in their bellies because, as we all know, a child needs nutrition for their overall well-being, for their academic success, all those things. So it's really critical. And in our world, when an injury keeps a parent from working, for example, the first budget cut is often food, because immediately they're looking at where can we trim. And so unfortunately, food takes a hit. And so by supporting Feed Northland Kids, we help bridge that gap for families in our own backyard. And so again, this year, December 2nd, what we'll be doing is we'll be matching up to $5,000 of donations that come in to Feed Northland Kids. And I will tell you this, the community is awesome, because last year we actually raised $24,000 for Feed Northland Kids through our campaign. And there's a lot of great people here in our community that are able to donate, and you very well may be one of those. And so it's just a really great way to help your neighbors in need. And here's the other cool thing. We're going to be at the Chiefs game November 23rd. We're going to have a couple of our box trucks in the parking lot during the tailgate. And if you find our box trucks and they look like this, then you can get yourself a koozie, a nice Casey koozie. And inside that koozie will be a card with a QR code, and you can do a donation right then and right there to get a head start on our Giving Tuesday campaign. So we're really excited. We're going to have Northland Injury Law team members out to the game, and we'll be there. We'll be looking for people. We'll be wanting to give away those koozies. I think we're going to have water bottles as well. And we just want to do everything we can this year to really bring a focus on this need, because it's been a tough year for a lot of people. And so it's really important that this year, if you've got $5 or if you got $50 and you can afford to donate that to an awesome cause that affects people right here in our community, you do it. And again, Northland Injury Law, we're giving $5,000 of our money as a match on those contributions, because again, we want to help folks. So Giving Tuesday, it's a global day of generosity. It's held the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, so right after Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So hopefully people still have some money after shopping, preparing for Christmas, and they can give whatever they can. But it encourages people to give through donations, volunteering, acts of kindness, whatever that looks like for you. And again, this is what we're doing. Again, we've been really excited about it the last few years. And just as a fun fact, in 2024, U.S. Giving Tuesday donations topped $3.5 billion in a single day. So pretty mind blowing. Again, we've got a lot of people out in the world, in our country, that are giving and trying to help their community. And there's so much divisiveness and there's so many issues in our country that this is a great time to just for everybody to come together and help everybody out. You can always think about, instead of just buying more stuff, we can invest in our neighbors, especially those recovering from life-changing injuries, illnesses, economic setbacks, whatever that looks like. And remember this: injury recovery is physical, it's financial, and it can be nutritional. And SNAP and food aid programs are vital bridges, especially during federal disruptions like this shutdown has been. And again, even before that, there's been this crisis building. Legal compensation, it restores legal compensation restores long-term stability, while community efforts like Feed Northland Kids addresses immediate needs. And that's what's critical. So remember this as always: if you're injured, seek legal help early to protect your income and your access to benefits and the rights that you have in that situation. Otherwise, support local food drives and advocacy for fair SNAP access in Missouri. Participate in Giving Tuesday to help neighbors get through tough times. Again, at Northland Injury Law, we're here to help you rebuild after an injury. And that means making sure our whole community stays fed, healthy, and secure. So until next time, as always, be safe and be well.